Hello everybody, this is Dragonzilla here, and today or tonight, depending on what time it is when you are watching this video, I will be reviewing a group of Godzilla high grade / Gashapon figures that are part of a group that doesn't really have a name, but a number, which is 30, and you're probably wondering, why are they called the 30th group? Well, that's because I was born in 1991, which was 30 years ago, so I'm 30 years old at the time of making this video. The Godzilla and King Ghidorah are the Heisei incarnations from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah that was originally released back in 1991. Gigan and Anguirus were amongst the first kaiju that I was introduced to when I first got into the franchise many years ago, and Nessie, who is a guest cryptid in the group, represents... well, I'll explain later. So this group will be important as it celebrates not only 30 years of my existence, but my long fascination and enthusiasm with Godzilla and monsters in general. First up is the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla. And yes, this time, it's the real Godzilla, not like the officials that had the fake imposter. So this is the 91 Godzilla from Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, or Ghidorah Goji as they call him over in Japan. And since I was born in 1991, the same year that Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah was released, it makes sense that the Godzilla to represent the 30th group should be the Ghidorah Goji. I absolutely love the look of this figure, and despite it being a Gashapon, it has really captured the suit's likeness very well. He does appear to be fairly identical to his predecessor, Bio Goji, even though 89 looks slightly slimmer compared to 91, but just a bit more bulky and angrier. On most Heisei Godzilla figures, the jaws are often shown to be open to indicate roaring, unless it's NECA or SH Monster Arts, where you have the option, but here Godzilla is growling. Well, mind you, the Heisei Godzilla was a snarler. This was a common sight back in the 90s. Monsters were depicted showing off their sharp teeth, not just in the kaiju genre, but in other monster franchises in general. It was a trope at the time. I like the dorsal spines on the back, even though I prefer the middle spines to be the largest and the side spines to be smaller, as seen on Showa Godzillas, but they do look impressive nonetheless, and he does look nice with his arch nemesis King Ghidorah, who we will be looking at shortly. This figure should have been the first one that I should have ordered before I turned 30, but he's here now, and before we move on to the next figure, you guys want to know a fun fact? This incarnation of Godzilla was originally going to fight King Kong at some point in the Heisei period. However, due to the complicated nature of the ownership to the character, Toho decided not to buy the rights to Kong, so they considered on using his robotic counterpart instead, Mechanicon. But again, they thought that he was too similar looking to the 8th wonder of the world, even though Mechanicon is a Japanese character who's based off an American beast. So, who did Godzilla end up fighting in 1991? Well, you'll find out right after this. Toho decided to play it safe and use a kaiju that they already had in their catalog, and they brought back King Ghidorah, who is considered to be the most popular monster in the franchise. Now, even though I do love the Showa King Ghidorah a lot, I do think the 91 Heisei incarnation of him does appear to be more menacing, being based on Western dragons rather than Eastern. From what I have heard, some folks say that this figure is their least favourite because he was an absolute nightmare to assemble. Well, I had no problems attaching the necks and tails onto the body, but the wings admittedly were a bit of a challenge. The right wing was a bit cooperative, but the left wing not so much, as you can see. It's not really that noticeable, and I've put it down as a war wound. In the movie, I think King Ghidorah's scales seem to be at times bright gold, and at other times a dull gold. But Bandai have gone with a bright gold colour scheme that makes him look more stunning. If you were to ask me how would I describe Godzilla Gashapon figures, I would have to say that they're miniature versions of the vinyls, even though they're actual vinyls in miniature. The Bandai Hyper Godzilla series fit that description. But for HG D King Ghidorah here, I would have to say I get SH Monster Arts vibes from him. Well, at least that's what this figure reminds me of. I had that same feeling with the King Ghidorah model that appeared in the Godzilla game for the PS4 and PS3. And apparently, from what I have heard, the SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah figure was actually scanned to create the model of King Ghidorah in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's also the case with the Gashapon figure. By the way, word of advice. When holding this figure, don't pick him up by the horns, because they do feel delicate and could break very easily. Overall, despite the wings being a challenge to put on, it's a great 91 King Ghidorah figure, and far more superior compared to the Monsterverse King Ghidorah Gashapon. However, it's not the only high-grade 91 Ghidorah figure that I own in the collection. I do have another, which was from the Godzilla 50th Anniversary Chronicles set, but it's kind of a wimpy looking figure, where the new model has a dominating presence and feels more menacing. And yes, he does look nice with Godzilla, who he towers over, just slightly in this case. Monster number 3 is the fierce spiky dragon himself, Anguirus. And this figure is not from Bandai, but by a company called Akira. They're technically Gashapons themselves, but some come with diorama bases. I have a fair few others in the collection, and I'll explain more about them when I come round to reviewing the group that they're in, but for now, Anguirus. Okay, so Anguirus doesn't come with any accessories. Not all of them do. You just attach the tail onto him, but it's just to put them together, so it doesn't count. In the previous review that I did on the officials, I said that I'll be using that Anguirus figure for future episodes and shorts of K&C. However, I like this model of Anguirus a lot more, as it appears to be almost 100% accurate to the actual suit itself. And this is coming from someone who, surprisingly or shockingly to some folks, doesn't really care for accuracy, but is just happy to have a decent representation of the character. Now, even though this figure is based off the second incarnation that was seen between 1968 and 74, I like to believe that this one is from Destroy All Monsters. It probably says that on the box, but it's all in Japanese, the language that I don't speak. However, I get Destroy All Monster vibes with this figure anyway. The paint job looks to be correct to the movie. One fang/tusk seems to be larger than the other, but that might just be how it's painted. And the tail appears to be very long. I know that Anguirus does have a long tail, but I don't really recall it being this huge. Out of all the Anguirus high grades that I have in the collection, not counting the bootleg or gummy, I would have to say that the IT Anguirus is my favourite because of accuracy. The other two Bandai models have charm, and so does IT. So for us Kaiju evolutionists, all we need now are the final walls and singular point incarnations of the spiky monster, and while you're at it, why not have the 68 to 72 Godzilla to go alongside Anguirus, even though he looks good with any incarnation of his best friend.